Hey everybody, thank you for joining us this weekend for our online service. We're so glad that you are here and being a part of River Valley. For those of you who are new to River Valley, we want to say a special welcome to you. We're glad that you're joining us. If you'd like to get some more information about who we are and some ways for you to get connected, we have some simple ways for you to do that. The first way you can do that is by going to our church website, which is myrvcf.org. You could also do that via text. You could go to your phone and you could text RVCF to the number 97,000. While you're on your phone, you could go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and you could download the RVCF app. You could follow us on Instagram, or you could like us on Facebook, and you can get information that way. At the end of our service today, make sure you stick around if you have kids, because Pastor Mike is going to share a message for our kids today. We have just a couple of upcoming events that we want to make sure that you are aware of. The first is coming up in a few days. We're having a prayer gathering on October 21st, and we would love it for you to come and just join us for a time of prayer. We know that our nation needs prayer. We know that our community needs prayer. We also know that our church needs prayer, and so please come and be a part of that with us on the 21st. Also, on the 25th of October, we have a baptism class. So for those of you who are interested in being baptized as believers, we'd love for you to come and sign up for that class and join us on the 25th. Later that night on the 25th, we also have a trunk or treat for Treehouse. And so all the kids are going to be there. We'd love for you to come and be a part. We are looking for some trunkers. Some people who are willing to come and open up their trunks and decorate and hand out candy. So if you'd like to be a part of that, we'd love for you to sign up and be a part of that. You can contact Mike Dean about that. Well, we're going to go ahead and spend some time in worship now, and then Pastor Derek has a word from us today from the Bible. So please, let's sing together.
Well, good morning, River Valley. We are so glad that you've joined us this morning. It's a privilege to worship with you, even apart. It's a privilege to be able to sing these songs with you and declare the truth that they hold. Let's worship together. Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. His love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free and last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yeah, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free. Forsaken, I am who you say I am, and you are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am, and you are for me, not against me. Sun sets free. oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me, and I'm a child of God. I'm a child of God. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Good morning, River Valley. Thank you for joining us for this second week of our new series called Set Apart, Resisting the Cultural Current, as we consider what it means to live as Christ followers in a world gone mad. And I think we could all agree it has. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been lied to? Or have you ever lied? Now, of course, the answer to both of those questions is yes, we have lied and we have been lied to. Recently, I was part of a small group that met for the first time, and as a means to get to know one another, we were to introduce ourselves by giving 3 pieces of information. 2 were to be true, and 1 was to be a lie. The others in the group had to guess which was the lie. Now, though we didn't know each other very well, some lies, of course, were easier to spot than others. I introduced myself to the group saying, when I was 11 years old, I was an all-star pitcher for my Little League baseball team. I also played the position of offensive tackle on my Pee Wee football team, and I played forward on the school soccer team. Now, which do you think was a lie? Did I really play offensive tackle for my football team? I mean, look at me. In fact, yes, I did. You know what they did? They just gave me enormous shoulder pads. That's what they did. The lie was that I played soccer. No, I didn't play soccer because growing up in West Virginia, no one played soccer. I don't even think I knew what a soccer ball was till I moved to Illinois much later. Sometimes, isn't it true, lies are difficult to discern. Like counterfeits that pose as the real thing, we can believe we have the truth in our possession when actually we're holding a lie. Now, there is a particular lie that has plagued humanity since the beginning. With each culture and generation, it takes on various shapes, but its deceitful origins are still the same. It all goes back to the Garden of Eden, where everything was perfectly ordered and in harmony with God. And Adam and Eve were told by God not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. One day, you may remember, the enemy, in the form of a serpent, came to Eve and deceptively led her to make the decision to eat the fruit and then give some to her husband, Adam, who also ate. Before she did, however, the text says that what she saw, the fruit that she saw that it was good for food. It was useful. It was a delight to the eyes, meaning it was attractive, and it could make one wise, which means the fruit came with a promise. As with all of creation, the tree was good, the fruit was good, and it was a delight to look at. If the tree was bearing like rotten, foul-smelling, worm-infested fruit, of course Eve would have said no. If somehow Adam and Eve could have seen the future and the poisonous effects of the single act of disobedience, they may have resisted that day. But how could something so consequential come out of something that looks so good and promised so much? More often than not, isn't it true that the lie presents itself as something good with a powerful promise to give us what we want? For Adam and Eve, the lie was too great and an exchange was made. What was the lie? Well, the lie was this: you can get what you want by exchanging God for the worship of something else. In the Bible, this is called idolatry. In Romans chapter 1, verse 25, Paul specifically defined idolatry as the exchanging the truth about God for a lie, worshiping and serving the creature rather than the Creator. The lie of idolatry says that your salvation and your security and acceptance and status and meaning are all found in what is created, not in the one who created it. Since the Garden of Eden, the lie of idolatry is in the heart of every human being. Still, I think for many, the idea of idolatry seems really foreign, and it seems like it's really in the ancient past. Because when we think of idolatry, many of us think of a group of people chanting and bowing down to some statue portraying some image in creation. And we ask, why would anyone do that? We just don't get it. We don't get the allure of such an act. We chalk it up to the weird customs and practices of a less enlightened people. Doug Stewart, in his commentary on Exodus, he lists several reasons about the allure of idolatry in the ancient world. I think they're very helpful. First of all, he says idolatry was guaranteed. It really was pretty simple. You just follow the formula. You carve an image of your local god, and the god inhabited the place, the piece of wood or the piece of stone. Then you placed it in your house, and this gave you immediate access and the attention of the god. So it was guaranteed. Idolatry was also selfish. If you give the gods what they want, they will give you what you want. Give to them what they need, and they will be obliged to give you something in return. Idolatry was also easy. You can do whatever you want with your life. In idolatry, there's no moral code to follow, and as long as you perform the prescribed ritual, you get what you want. It's very easy. Idolatry was also convenient. Images of gods could be found anywhere and everywhere in the ancient world. Statues could be placed in the home, or you could just take one with you. Idolatry was also normal. Everyone did this. This is how things got done in the ancient world. If you wanted a bumper crop, you had to worship the idol. If you wanted children, you had to worship the idol. If you needed a military victory, you worshiped the idol. Idolatry was also sensual. Sex was often part of the rituals of idolatry. The belief was, if sex was being practiced on earth as a part of the ritual of idolatry, then that would also create sex among the gods, which provided fertility of rains and harvest and children. Now, do you see the allure of idolatry for the ancient world? The lie of idolatry was also alluring to the ancient Israelites. Throughout most of their history, they were continually tempted to exchange God for the worship of the Egyptian or the Canaanite gods, often, in fact, mixing the worship of their God with the other false gods. Now, you may remember who the Israelites were. Do you remember? The Israelites were the descendants of Abraham, whom God chose to follow him. From Abraham came Isaac, and then from Isaac came Jacob, whose name was later changed by God to Israel. From Jacob came 12 sons, who became the 12 tribes of Israel. And over time, these 12 families grew in great numbers of people, that they were living in Egypt at the time, and the king of Egypt felt threatened by them. And so what did he do? He enslaved them. After 400 years of enslavement, God used Moses and 10 plagues to deliver the Israelites from slavery. You may remember that with every plague, God proved himself to be the one true God over the impotent false gods of Egypt and over creation itself. The Israelites left the only life they knew as slaves in Egypt and into a new life and into a new land of their own. This is called the Exodus. God was delivering on a covenant promise he gave to Abraham centuries before, that he was setting apart the Israelites to be his people, and he would be their God. Now, unlike their life in Egypt, where they participated in the worship of many gods fashioned in the images of nature, their new identity as the set-apart people of God required them to worship God exclusively. When Moses and the people left Egypt and they came to Mount Sinai, you may remember that God took Moses up on Mount Sinai and he gave him the 10 commandments. The first ones on the list were these: "You shall have no other gods before me, and you shall not make for yourself any carved image of anything in nature, and you shall not bow down or serve them. Now, what does God mean when he says, "You shall have no other gods before me"? See, sometimes this is taken to mean that we must put God first. But this is not all that he was commanding. He is not saying to worship him first among other gods, but to worship him exclusively among false gods. When Teresa and I were married, we made vows to one another, promising to be faithful and that our love and devotion to one another would be exclusive. I vowed to Teresa that I am exclusively hers, and she vowed that she is exclusively mine. In marriage, exclusivity is an expression of love. To make a marriage non-exclusive is really to have no marriage at all. It is not loving of me to tell Teresa she will always be my wife and number one, but there may be a few girlfriends along the way. She doesn't just want to be number one, she wants to be the only one. See, as in marriage, it is loving of God to say, I am exclusively your God, and you are exclusively my people. I mean, would it be loving of God to allow a non-exclusive relationship with him? What kind of God shares worship with imposter gods? Now, ironically, while Moses was receiving these commandments of this exclusive relationship that God was commanding, below the mountain, a rebellion was underway. Let's read about it. If you have a Bible, I would love for you to turn with me to Exodus chapter 32, beginning at verse 1. Exodus 32, beginning at verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, Up, make us gods who shall go before us. And for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him. So Aaron said to them, Take off the rings of gold that are in your ears, the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people took off the rings of the gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Do you see the lie of idolatry at work here? Like Adam and Eve, the Israelites do not make a request of Aaron to make an idol for them to worship out of ignorance of who God is. No, they just witnessed the greatest show of grace and power ever seen. Even as they rebelled, the thunder and the lightning was a sign that God was still present on that mountain. And yet, even with all of this knowledge and experience with God, they quickly exchanged him for something that they wanted. Like the Israelites, our temptation, I think, to act on the lie of idolatry does not come from a place of ignorance. Paul says that every human being is without excuse, having the knowledge of God through creation. So how much more so, as followers of Jesus, have we experienced his love and his compassion and his presence? We know, don't we, as his followers, the character of Christ and his sacrifice to bring us into relationship with himself. And yet, how often are we tempted to exchange him for the worship of something else to obtain our deepest desires? Did you notice in the text what the calf was made of? Gold, yes, but from what? Earrings. Now, that was a lot of earrings, I got to tell you. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with the earrings themselves. The problem was what they wanted from the earrings, from the gold. They wanted a god to lead them. See, they took a good thing and they made it into a god thing, proving once again that we can make an idol out of anything. See, just like the people of ancient past, we desire a spirituality that is easy to do, that costs us little, is pleasurable, and guarantees our success. The current of our culture says idolatry is the answer. So we exchange God for the worship of counterfeits, often from the good that God has provided us. We make idols then out of our retirement accounts, our children's educational success, our health, our jobs, our possessions, our positions, and 1,000 other things. Do you see what caused the rebellion and an act of idolatry among the Israelites in chapter 32? Do you see what caused this rebellion? Their impatience. Their impatience. It says that Moses was delayed and they wanted to move. There was a promised land waiting for them. So if the God who delivered them and his representative Moses were not going to come through for them, they believed that they needed a new God to take them where they wanted to go. Let me ask you, you ever get impatient with God thinking he's holding out on you? Adam and Eve believed that they could be more than they were and receive more than they had been given by eating the fruit. See, Adam and Eve thought that eating the fruit was a shortcut to the desire of their heart. But please, let me tell you, idolatry will always look like a shortcut to joy when in reality it's an invitation to despair. But here's my question. Why do we have such difficulty in seeing it? Why do we have such a difficulty seeing these idols that we are creating in our own hearts? Well, Bruce Ellis Benson, a former philosophy professor, he wrote this. He says, not only are we capable of creating idols and worshiping them, we are likewise capable of being almost or completely blind to their existence. Our recognition of idols for what they are is often selective. Do you find this to be true? Are you surprised to the extent of blindness and selectivity we are capable of when it comes to our idols? I mean, we really shouldn't be. Paul explains in Romans chapter 1, verse 21, he says, "For although they knew God, they did not honor him or give God thanks, but became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened." So what does it look like to become futile in your thinking? The prophet Isaiah answers this in chapter 44 when talking about those who make a fire with one piece of wood while making an idol out of the other. He writes that such a person says, "Aha, I am warm, I have seen the fire." And the rest of it he makes into a god, his idol, and falls down to it and worships it. He prays to it and says, "Deliver me, for you are my God." Isaiah is describing someone who has become futile in their thinking. He writes, "A deluded heart has led him astray, and he cannot deliver himself or say, 'Is there not a lie in my right hand?'" So here's the picture that Isaiah gives us. Here's a guy holding an idol he's carved from wood in one hand, the same wood he's using for fire to warm himself and bake bread, and he can't see that the idol he's holding is a lie. So let me ask you, can you tell if you have created an idol in your life? Can you tell if you're holding a lie? In 2005, David Foster Wallace, the novelist, gave the commencement speech at Kenyon College. And in the speech, he said this: "If you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough, never feel you have enough. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure," he says, "and you will always feel ugly. Worship power, and you will end up feeling weak and afraid, and you will need ever more power over others to numb you to your own fear. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart, and you will end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. But the insidious thing about these forms of worship is that they are unconscious. They are default settings." Interesting. See, the lie of idolatry is a default setting that seeks our satisfaction and hope in objects never meant to bear the weight of our worship. All idols will eventually crumble under the godlike expectations we give them. And when they do, our culture will always be ready to provide another alternative to worship. John Tyson gets to the heart of our idolatry when he writes this: disordered loves lead to disordered lives. Disordered loves lead to disordered lives. So, does your life show itself to be disordered? Could it be that you have loves that are out of place? See, if we are to resist this cultural current, if we are to be the kind of people who are set apart for the purpose of God in this season of upheaval and in this world that's gone mad, then we are going to have to find ways to stir up our affections, powerful affections, to overcome the temptation and the allure of idolatry and bowing down to things around us, making idols out of almost anything. So the question is, how may you stir up your love for Jesus this week? Well, let me give you a few suggestions. Here they are. You ready? Commune with Jesus by meditating on His teaching and reading the Bible. Repent of any known sin that you may have. Observe Jesus' life in the Gospels. Unburden yourself by speaking with Him from your heart. Maybe listen or sing songs that lead you to praise over what He's done for you. Invite Jesus into your work and into your conversations and into your decision making. Participate, as you are right now, in the assembly of the church. Live in community with other believers. Reflect on your own faith story and be absolutely amazed at what God has done. Or take a walk and commune with Christ in creation. See, in our world gone mad, I trust that we may see, as those set apart by His grace, that we will resist this cultural current of idolatry and worship in the only one who can satisfy our deepest needs, and that is Jesus. See, Jesus came to set us free from the lie of idolatry. Because behind every unworthy object, Jesus is the one we've been searching for. Jesus is the lasting hope we've been seeking. He came to reorder our loves. He came to give us the true and lasting object of our worship. He came to help us see the lies we hold, to clear away our futile thinking, to give light to our darkened hearts, and to keep our good things in their place. So how did He do this? Well, He took my sin and my dissatisfaction and my rebellion and my insecurities and my impatience and my proneness to exchange Him for a lie, and He gave His life for me so that I could hear Him say, Derek, your search is over. You are loved, and you are accepted, and you are forgiven, and you are mine. May this reality and our relationship with Christ be the love that overcomes all other loves, all the pseudo-loves, all the alternatives, all other counterfeits that may be a temptation to you and to me. May Jesus hold supreme place in our hearts, our minds, our spirits. May we not love another like we love Jesus. Let's pray together. Father, I thank You for Your word today. God, we thank You for this special revelation that You've given us, that we may not grasp for truth and we may not have to guess at truth, but God, You reveal Your truth before us, and You reveal this wonderful desire of Yours to have relationship with us, but not just any kind of relationship, not just an open kind of relationship, but an exclusive one. And so, Father, I pray, because all of us have this seed of idolatry that desires to blossom every day in our lives, that we would be tempted to exchange You for something else. But God, help us to understand that through you, we find our ultimate security and we find our ultimate significance, our ultimate acceptance and love. And God, may we not be like the one whom Isaiah spoke about, to not realize the lies that we may be holding, but God, may by your Spirit we see the lies that tempt us. May we see the lies within our own hearts, the deception that's going on in our own hearts. And God, may we resist this temptation and this current of our culture. May we live holy, set apart for you in this world right now, in this season. God, help us. Fill us with your Spirit. Fill us with your Spirit, God, that you may be present, that there will be less of us and more of you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Christ is my reward and all of my devotion. Now there's nothing in this world that could ever satisfy. And through every trial, my soul will sing, no turning back. I've been set free. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Christ, my all in all, the joy of my salvation. And this hope will never fail, and heaven is our home. And through every storm, my soul will sing, Jesus is here. To God be the glory, and Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. And everything I need is in you. Everything I need. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. And I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. And everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need.
Thank you again so much for joining us. I hope that that message and the time of worship really spoke to your heart where you're at today, that God is going to use that this week to continue to shape you into being more like his son Jesus. For those of you who have kids, please remember to stick around. Pastor Mike is going to be on in just a few minutes, and we've got a message for your kids from Pastor Mike. The last thing that I want to say is we're so thankful for your faithful giving. It is that faithful giving that enables us to continue having these online services. It enables us to have middle school ministry and Awana and Treehouse and Manifest and community service days and all those things that we're able to do. Also, it keeps us having indoor services. So we really appreciate that and love that you are continuing to give during this hard time. And so for those of you who would like to continue to give, you know that you can do that on our website, myrvcf.org/give. If you are new to River Valley and you want to give, that's a great place to start. So you can also send a check to 800 Cardinal Drive in Bourbonnais. That would be another great way that you can give. Well, again, we're so grateful for you and the time that you spent with us this week. We hope that you are blessed. Have a great week.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in and listen again today. It means a lot to me, as I always say, to get a chance to speak with you each week and to teach you from God's Word. And so we're going to jump right in today. We're continuing the series that we've been doing on Proverbs today. We're just about done, but we're going to continue it for this week. And we're looking at Proverbs 17:7, which I'm going to have you look up in just a second. But before we even do that, before we even start that, I want you to take a second and talk about what a proverb is. We've done this each week for like 6 weeks in a row, so hopefully you're really beginning to remember what that is. But take a minute, pause the video, and talk to mom or dad or whoever adult is watching the video with you, and answer the question, what is a proverb? All right? Okay, go ahead. Awesome. Did you do it? I hope so. I hope you actually did it. All right. So we've defined a proverb as a short statement that help us to make the kinds of decisions that lead to the best life possible. And they're short statements so that they're easy to remember. And the idea is that we can remember them and use them as guides to help us to make the kinds of decisions that lead to the best life possible. So we've looked at all kinds of proverbs about honesty and hard work and helping others and all sorts of things, gossip last week. And so today we're looking at this. This was a hard one. I had a hard time deciding how to talk to you about this. It's super important, so I wanted to do it. It's just a harder topic to talk about. But this is Proverbs 17:17. So take a second. I want you to read the proverb together first. So take a second, pause the video, find a Bible, and look up Proverbs 17:17 and read it together and just have a little conversation about what do you think that proverb means. All right, go ahead and take a second and do that. All right. So here's what the proverb says. Proverbs 17:17 says, "Pride goes before destruction, and haughtiness before a fall." So there's two words in there that you have to understand in order to have any idea what the proverb's talking about. And that's the word pride and the word haughty or haughtiness. And for our conversation today, pride and haughtiness mean pretty close to the same thing. We do use the words a little bit differently, but they mean pretty close to the same thing. And so we're going to define pride. Pride, the problem with the word pride is it can actually mean a lot of different things. It can mean different things. Pride can mean, for instance, just a good feeling about something that we have done. Like we feel like we've done something well, right? So pride can actually be a word that is something very positive. But pride in this context is talking about something negative. And in this case, the word pride means to think too highly or even too much of myself. Or you could put it this way, to make ourself an idol, to worship ourselves, or to worship ourselves instead of God. Those would all be good definitions of pride. So let me break that down a little and kind of help you understand. Pride means taking credit for things that God did, right? Or thinking so much about ourselves and what we want and what's good about us or what's bad about us that we don't think about God and who He is and give Him credit for what He's done or what He's doing. So it means to choose ourselves and value ourselves more than we choose God or value God or love God. Right? So I have a book that I think maybe will help us to understand this a little bit. And the book is called Full Moon Rising. It's by Christy and T. Lively Fluharty. So I'm having a hard time pronouncing the last name. That's okay. I think it's Fluharty, or it could be Fluharty. I actually spoke before the video with someone to find out how to pronounce it. We're not sure. So we're going to go with that. But Christy and T. Lively Fluharty is what we're going with. It's an excellent book, though. So listen closely while I read to you. And while I do, think about that word pride. And I think this book will help you to understand what it means. All right. Dear God, I heard a cosmic story and wondered if it's true. The moon was stealing glory, and this is what he'd do. He bragged each night that his great might could make the darkness flee. And like a kite, he scaled the heights and said, "Hey, look at me!" The pompous moon would only croon the songs that praised his name. He hoped that soon the cosmic tunes would bring him greater fame. He's got songs, Blue Moon. It's really strange, but he could change his shape throughout the year. His face would change, then rearrange, and sometimes disappear. He loved the thought that astronauts had danced across his face. And cosmonauts and monkeynauts would visit him in space. He bragged that he could cause the sea to rise and swell each day. Then all could see how mightily he'd pull the waves away. He'd boast away and love to say, "I am the greatest light." Until one day, a piercing ray showed him a shocking sight. He saw his pride, and then he cried for all that he had done. For he had lied when he denied his light came from the sun. So now each night, a new delight is what he loves the most. Reflecting light with all his might, the sun is now his boast. So God, I pray for grace each day to find the joy that's true in all my days and all my ways in making much of you. Then it's got some cool facts about the solar system, which I will not read to you, because I'll have to get the book for that. Awesome. All right, so did you pay attention there? I hope so, and I hope that helps. So notice what happened in the story. The moon was taking credit for things that the sun was doing. So the moon was taking credit for his bright light and how he rose and how his shape changed. And none of those things were things that happened because of him. They were all things that happened because of the sun and because of the rotation of the earth and because of some of those things. And so pride, remember, pride is when we think too highly or too often of ourselves. And it's really easy for us to get the wrong idea and think that the good things in our life is because of how smart we are, because of how good looking we are, or because of how capable we are in some way, when really the Bible tells us that the good things that we enjoy are gifts from God. Right? He has given them to us, and we should be thankful for them. It's also really for us to spend all of our time and energy just thinking about us. Some people constantly think about themselves and what they want and how great they are and what they want to do, and other people constantly think about themselves and think about their weaknesses and what they can't do and their failings and their shortcomings. But either way, they're spending all their time and energy thinking about them instead of thinking about God. And it's God that deserves our affection. It's Him that deserves our praise. It's He that we should be thinking about and meditating on and taking time to speak to and to learn about Him. And so when we do those things, when we are so focused on ourselves, or when we think too highly of ourselves, or when we take credit for things that really aren't ours to take credit for, we're being prideful. And this proverb, Proverbs 17:17 says that if we are prideful, that we will not make the kind of decisions that lead to the kind of life that we really desire to have, the best life possible. So I want you to think about this. I have some questions that are going to come up on the screen here in just a minute. And I would love for your family to sit and maybe discuss and talk through those questions. I think that would be really good for you to take a minute and do. And I want to also encourage you guys, again, Proverbs 17:7 is a great proverb to memorize. These proverbs are so easy to commit to memory because they're so short and concise. And so Mom and Dad especially, I encourage you to take some time this week to rehearse this proverb some and help your kids to commit it to memory. It would be good for them to remember that pride goes before destruction and haughtiness comes before a fall. All right. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Bye.